Well, my title is from the classic 1966 Western starring Clint Eastwood. But hopefully my talk will be less violent than the movie, though with religion you never know. Well, okay, so you might be asking yourself, who is this guy trying to tell me about religion? Well, I was raised in the United States by liberal Catholic parents. And I went to Catholic schools even up through college. During my sophomore year, I even considered the priesthood. And Notre Dame even offered to fund my PhD if I entered seminary. But in that same year, I lost the faith. And for the next 20 years, I was an atheist, a very, very committed atheist. Nowadays, I would not say I'm an atheist, and I'll explain more on that later. I actually wrote 3 different talks on religion, and I'm going to give you all 3, albeit in short form. Each of these talks represents 3 incompatible points of view, so they don't all represent my point of view, but it seemed to me that each one had some part of the truth. My first talk is from the perspective of atheism. And just to be clear that this is not really me talking, I'm going to wear my hat like so, because this is really not me. Add some clarity to the situation. Okay. The moral frameworks of most religions is not just occasionally imperfect, they are warped at the foundations. For the rules are enforced by invoking the threat of hell, of eternal damnation. And this is not a minor feature of these religions. It's voiced in numerous important passages from the Bible and the Quran and elsewhere. Bertrand Russell once put the problem here succinctly. Anyone who believes in eternal damnation is inhuman. Granted, there may be liberal interpretations of scriptures which sort of gloss over the horrors of hell, but even if torture is omitted, the fact that eternal damnation is eternal seems bad enough. After all, if my 80 years of life is as sinful as can be, actually I have to knock on wood, hopefully I live that long. Even if my 80 years of life is as sinful as can be, that's still an infinitesimally short time in the ocean of eternity. So to spend eternity being punished seems hardly to fit the crime. Regardless, religious writers like Mary Poplin, professor of education at Claremont University, she argues that we still should embrace a religion like Christianity precisely because of its moral framework. Her argument is basically that Christian morality, or the Christian ethical system, is really the only one that has really worked. And since we need ethics, we therefore need Christianity. Okay, well, first of all, let's broaden this thinking, first of all, so that it concerns just religious ethics in general. I still want to ask, why think that religious ethical systems are the only ones that can work? Consider Aristotle, who has a very serious ethical philosophy, which makes no essential reference to God or to hell, for that matter. Why would you simply dismiss his view as inferior? Well, Poplin argues that without the authority of religion, we will be forever creating and recreating and contesting each other's definitions of morality, suggesting that we're going to be sort of stuck in confusion and inaction. So what she's really raising is this point about we need religion as a kind of moral authority. Is that true? No. And there's two parts to this argument here. First part, values like feeding the poor, tending to the sick, and so on, these are universal values. Sure, there are such things as sociopaths, but humanitarian concerns are prominent across virtually all religions and cultures. This is something stressed by numerous writers as well, not just Bertrand Russell, by the way, but also folks like C.S. Lewis and the Dalai Lama. Anyway, so I think to a large extent, the concern about being stuck in debate, to a large extent, that's not a concern. Okay, second part of the answer though. When there is disagreement on value, I think debate should be ongoing. Granted, debate should be productive, and debate is no substitute for positive action. But when there is disagreement on which action is positive, I'd rather have a debate than just defer to religious scripture. Scripture is fallible like the human beings who wrote it. Okay, now I'm going to switch modes. I'm going from the atheist mode to the agnostic mode. All right, in his time, Socrates was said to be the wisest of all people. Socrates himself was confused by this, since even though he was a seeker of the truth, he did not claim to know anything. Eventually, however, he realized that this was exactly what made him the wisest. Other people claim to know many important philosophical truths, how to live, how to behave. But when subjected to Socrates' close critical questioning, such people turned out not to know. So Socrates indeed seemed wiser, since he at least never claimed to know anything in the first place. Okay, typically, religious leaders claim to know. They represent themselves as knowing that their religion is the most important source of philosophical truth that there is. Now, maybe they do know. I don't know, I'm an agnostic. But Socrates believed that people often claim to know when they do not really know. And if that resonates with us, we might be hesitant to trust those who claim to know. But look, how can we learn if we cannot trust others? I mean, taking this sort of global skepticism toward everybody, it doesn't seem very productive. Well, let me tell you a story. So in the United States, children celebrate Halloween by going trick-or-treating. They go door to door to collect free candy from their neighbors. Now, once upon a time, there was a 12-year-old boy named Ted, and he took his little brother, his 3-year-old brother, Brody, trick-or-treating for the first time. After touring the neighborhood, they returned home to feast. The first thing that Brody tried was some sweet tarts. These are these little brown, sour candies. Brody loved them. And Ted said, yes, sweet tarts are the best. And in fact, since I'm such a nice brother, I'm going to give you all of my sweet tarts. And Brody gratefully received them. But then Ted said, now it looks like you have too much candy. And then, so let me just relieve you of some of your chocolate bars which are not very good anyway, and then it'll look like you have the right amount of candy. Now, as I'm sure you know, chocolate bars are much better than sweet tarts. But Brody didn't know that, since he never tried all the different candies. But since he had tried the sweet tarts, and he knew he liked them at least, he went along with his older brother's trade. Okay, now similarly, here's the point. Similarly, you might be very fond of the religion you were raised with, but is it the only one you've tried? It may be very good, a very tasty religion, but how do you know it is the chocolate bar of religions and not just the sweet tarts? Well, okay, religion is not like candy where you can just casually try all the options. And maybe you prefer to just stick with what you know. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But if so, you shouldn't go around claiming to know you've got the chocolate when really you haven't tried anything else. You can't know unless you try. Note to my students, college is a good time to experiment, by the way. And don't take a tiny nibble, take a big bite. Okay, next character. Actually, now I'm speaking for myself. Okay, speaking for myself, I am neither atheist nor agnostic, or rather, since I think we are all agnostic after a certain point, let me just say I'm neither atheist or agnostic in the standard sense. I instead fall into that much maligned category known as spiritual but not religious. I agree with atheists that much religion exhibits an unfortunate kind of moral authoritarianism. And I also agree with agnostics that religious leaders tend to indulge in this kind of intellectual authoritarianism that seems unwise, to put it mildly. So these two features are the ones we might identify as the ugly and the bad of religion. Even so, I now find that I'm no longer able to live as a secular humanist. A key reason is that secular humanism seems powerless against a nihilistic idea like it doesn't really matter whether human beings go extinct. The humanist can only say that it matters to humans whether human beings go extinct. And that is trite. So it in no way implies that it ultimately matters whether human beings exist. But I believe that our existence really does matter. And so I am committed to there being things that matter independently of what matters to humans. This is not an argument for why humanity really matters. I'm just bringing out what I am committed to by the fact that I believe humanity really matters. So I'm committed to something beyond us which makes us really matter. If you want to call that thing God, I don't need to argue with that. In fact, I don't need to quibble with any of the finer points of theology or moral theory. I don't think nuanced theology or moral theory is what the world needs most. What the world really needs is for individuals to come alive, to quote Howard Thurman. That is, for individuals to reconnect with the joy and goodness that is deep down underneath all the thoughts, as Bhante Gunaratana puts it. This is something you can achieve in various styles of prayer and meditation, and neuroscience is now confirming the remarkable benefits of regular meditative practice. Indeed, nuanced theology and moral theory can be counterproductive. I know I'm a philosophy professor and I shouldn't say that, but there you go. It can be counterproductive. Intellectual activity is very good at obscuring the joy and goodness that is deep down essential to who you are. If you can regularly reconnect with that, then I've found that virtue happens naturally as a matter of course. This is not to say it's going to happen overnight, and actually the process may take longer than a year, but one thing we know now is that brains are highly malleable. And there's a good TEDx talk on this called The Most Important Lesson from 83,000 Brain Scans. They can even restore cognitive function to some degree in Alzheimer's patients. But anyway, you cannot know about the transformation you're capable of merely on my saying so. Really, you should see for yourself. Shalom, salam, peace, namaste.